What's up, guys? Ian here, coach of your Ladner Lanturn. This music might be a little bit too loud. Let me just adjust this here. Bringing you guys our aABL Season 5 Magma League recap. Yeah, I'm doing this a little bit earlier than I normally would, but the last time I did an aABL season recap, it took Dan and Ben like 4 weeks to play their finals match, and I don't really care about waiting for the winner here. I'm just gonna get right into things because what matters is my season in this league. So, yeah, we're just gonna get right into things here. So let's start off how I normally do. If you've never watched a season recap of mine, then I always start with my draft breakdown, sort of discuss the team, the synergy problems that it had, maybe, or what didn't work for it, and maybe what did. So. First up here, I grabbed the Zapdos Never Fail. I love Zapdos. It's just so good, and there's really no reason not to pick Zapdos every single time. Zapdos worked really well on this team. It came to the most games out of everything, and it was just a solid, super, super, super solid Mon. Ferrothorn, I enjoyed once again, especially pairing it with Zapdos. There were a couple matchups where people really struggled to deal with Ferrothorn. It just seems to be a Pokemon that if you don't prep for it properly, it can kind of just decimate you. So yeah, that ended up being quite a problem, and it's definitely a problem for newer players, which is what tends to happen in leagues like aABL. I found the same thing in D&D. Newer players definitely struggled to capitalize on Ferrothorn, either by trying to run fighting coverage instead of fire coverage, or just like not putting fire coverage on this. There's a good example of this in a game in aABL this season where Ferrothorn ended up getting 4 kills in the one game because someone didn't bring fire coverage for it. And I had the same problem in D&D way, 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 way back where Ferrothorn just picked up 6 kills because this dude didn't bring fire coverage at all. Mega Charizard X, I actually found that Mega Charizard X was such a gigantic threat that people over-prepped for Mega Charizard X, like, immensely. That's definitely something to look at in the future in terms of my play and prep and sort of figure out where I can take that, because I don't think I capitalized on that enough with Zardex. There was another Mon that ended up being the star of the team in reality, and Zard sort of was like second string, but it put so much pressure on that people weren't prepping for the actual star. Slowking seems kind of niche as a bulky water to me. I'm not actually the biggest fan of it. I enjoy using it for sure, but when I saw how little games it came to, it just sort of clicks for me that it's not as good as something like a Vaporeon or a Melodic or something where you can kind of just like slap them on a team. So that Melodic snipe ended up hurting quite a bit in the grand scheme of things because Slowking just wasn't cutting it the entire season, unfortunately. I think it only showed up to 3 or 4 games, and one of them was a meme match. Yeah, you'd like to have your bulky water come to at least over 50% of the games. Another problem being the 12-mon format. I'm still not a fan of that. It just it really hampers prep when everyone's forced into 12 Pokemon. If I can opt into having 11 and my opponent can opt into having 12 in some sort of points format, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. I'm fine with prepping for their 12 mons. I hate prepping with 12 mons. I'm never gonna, if I ever have the option to not have 12 mons, I'm not gonna take it. Like it's so obnoxious, um, forcing myself into 12 mons. It's just that one extra mon just changes prep entirely, and it's super annoying. Yeah, rant, but yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of Slowking. Maybe if I paired it with another Regenerator Mon, it would have been a little bit better. Abomasnow actually came to a lot more games than I expected it to. This thing is just so offensively powerful. I didn't even bring Z Abomasnow even once. I don't actually think that I brought Z that many times this season. I think I only brought it. I mean, to my knowledge, the only game that I remember using it was like the last game, like playoff quarterfinals is like the one time I remember bringing Z. But we'll have to check when I get to the teams. Keldeo I ended up dropping, which was unfortunate because Keldeo had a much better matchup against my quarterfinals opponent than what I ended up picking up instead. Keldeo is normally pretty consistent for me. I didn't realize how often I'd used it until I looked at my all-time kills doc. But it's pretty consistent in that it'll like get you a kill every single game. In this league, it didn't do that. It ended up falling to the wayside. It didn't actually see the field all that often, to be honest. But There were a couple matchups where it looked alright, especially the one against Chuckle King, and then I just got absolutely bodied in that one, so can't say much about that one. I just realized how stupid Keldio's head looks. Like, it looks really dumb. Very interesting. Nidoking, which was the real star of the team here, people did not prep for Nidoking even slightly, and it got 19 kills this season, which is pretty nuts. 19 kills in 6 games, so it was actually averaging a little bit more than 3 kills a game whenever it was coming. Yeah, people just did not have switch-ins to Nidoking, and this is kind of another thing about the newer players, and what I mentioned about Ferrothorn above, is that Nidoking kind of picks on the same sort of thing. It's really difficult to prep for Life Orb Nidoking. Like, you don't generally have switch-ins to it anyways, and maybe this is another factor of bringing 12 Pokemon. Maybe they were just trying to prep for the Charizard and the Keldeo instead of prepping for the Nidoking. But it ended up just like cleaning up teams, just decimating teams, which was just huge. Honestly, all season there were a couple 5-kill games for it, I think. But yeah, it put in just tremendous amount of offensive pressure against teams. Regular Deancey, I've been a huge fan of in the past. I kind of just wasn't able to come to games this season. Like, um, I primarily used Ferrothorn as the rocker, and I would occasionally run rocks on Nidoking, except for the games where Deancey came, where it was the rocker, and then that freed me up to use like spikes on Ferrothorn and things of that nature. I really liked the dynamic of that aspect of the team, is that I had so many spikers that as long as I could bring like a primary rocker and have Ferrothorn or Diggersby or Gliscod or whatever be spikers, then that was super solid for me. And with the drops later on into the season, I ended up liking that option a lot more because it gave me another 2 rockers on the team. So that was fine. I liked regular DNC. I normally really like regular DNC. Offensive variants are pretty fun to use. It had some utility games. I brought like a screen set against the Nidoqueen team against Joe, and that was pretty fun. Persian, I don't understand why I keep drafting this. I've actually used it more times than I probably should have, just because I'm really not the biggest fan of this. So it's a great momentum grabber, and on paper, parting shot support into Charizard X sounds absolutely nutty. But in practice, it does not work like that at all. Um, it's too weak. It can't threaten things out, and so you really have to parting shot into something that's bulky and then maybe double. But with all that said, that just doesn't leave room for Charizard to set up on things. So I'm not the biggest fan of this. It was nice to have a Dark type on the team at the very least, but I was not the biggest fan of Persian. I still am not. Somehow I won a championship with it, but I barely brought it that season, so I don't know. Diggersby. Diggersby was great. What a great Pokemon, honestly. I love Diggersby. Probably would have preferred having something else on the team instead of another ground type, and I ended up going really overboard on the doubling up of typings, despite actually having all the typings at one point. This is another problem with 12 Pokemon. Forces you to double up on things, which is really annoying. Once again, really annoying. Yeah, Diggersby was pretty solid, though hilarious. I sacked it once against Chuckle King just for no reason, but put it in the finest of work in the other games, and then I ended up trading it away. Gourgeist was kind of I'm not sold on it. I've been beat down by a Gourgeist, I think, only once. Most of the time, you can get a Toxic off on it pretty easily. Uh, the idea that it has, 4 different forms of varying speeds and bulk is a cool idea in theory, but in practice, it ends up not working for me, personally. It's just not my kind of mon. It's more of a Jedmon, so I'm just probably never going to draft Gourgeist again unless I really need a bulky grass in Tier 5 or something like that. Gliscod was good when it came. As per usual, I'm a big Gliscod fan. I love using Gliscod. It's so much fun to use with emergency exit mechanics. Um, yeah, all in all, I didn't really enjoy the team all that much. I felt comfortable with it. My record showed that I was reasonably comfortable with it, but it didn't end up doing all that much for me. Remember, I dropped Gourgeist for Xatu. Xatu came to a single game, and then I dropped Xatu for Persimmon. I traded Diggersby for Hippowdon, and I dropped Keldeo for Excadrill, and that was the extent of my transactions, I believe. But let's take a look at the doc here while we're doing that. So this is what the main page looks like. It's it's a fairly basic doc. These are all like inserted instead of having text box with the image link, which I think actually would be a lot more helpful. And I'm going to suggest that to Anna for future seasons, is having like just multiple text box and then put the image link in with the Discord link so that other people can grab these instead of having to ask for the logo when they're trying to do uploads. That was one of the most annoying things. This New Jersey Sobbles logo in particular, whoops, I shouldn't be touching things, but this New Jersey Sobbles logo in particular was quite the pain in the ass to get on a thumbnail. I basically just copy and pasted it onto the thumbnail, and then the resolution wasn't really working out all that well because it was inserted. Yeah, but that's kind of what that looked like. Rules and whatnot is whatever. Again, it's pretty basic formatting. Um, might be more helpful to have like a proper rule stock for this sort of thing. I'm not sure. Tier list, again, it's pretty basic stuff here. Okay, so here I ended up dropping. Yeah, I dropped Gourgeist for Xatu. So Gourgeist was 0-1 in one game, and then I dropped. And then I traded Diggersby for a Powdon over here, and then I dropped Keldeo 2-2 in 5 games for Excadrill, and Xatu 0-0 in one game for Passimian. So we picked up the Sand Core, and we used up all of our free agent transactions as well as our trade. It was pretty solid. I liked having the Sand Core on the team. It ended up rounding things out a little bit better. Z Hippowdon was obviously not going to come all that much. The only person I've seen, excuse me, use Z Hippowdon well is TCTML in Hive of all places. But yeah, Z Excadrill ended up coming. I want to say I brought Z Keldeo like one time, but never clicked it. And then Z Abomasnow never ended up coming. I'm not a biggest fan of like Z captains in general, but my team just wasn't very Z friendly. I much prefer OpenZ and the freedom that it allows. I think when people say, "Oh, it's so much harder to prep for OpenZ," well, you can generally identify what's going to require a Z against your team to either break something or to be an offensive threat. And people definitely overestimate OpenZ's threats. Like obviously, it's a different dimension of prep, but how open it leaves your team is up to your drafting capabilities rather than being forced into using 3 different Z users. And say, for example, I would probably never do this, but say, for example, I wanted to run Z Ferrothorn, I'm just locked into it. Like, I can't run Z Ferrothorn, even if I wanted to. Even if it's got the better matchup, I just can't do it. Um, which kind of ends up sucking quite a bit. Especially when you're locked in having a tier 5 Z user. I obviously would prefer to have, Abomasnow locked into that role because it's the better Z user of my tier 5s anyways, but it's just not. I don't know. That's another rant for another day maybe, but um, I see a lot of people trashing on OpenZ all the time when they haven't tried it, or they've tried it and they've had a bad experience. NCL is a great example of this. We're starting our 5th season. No one has complained about it being OpenZ ever, and it's been OpenZ since the start. So it's really not an issue. And if you can prep properly, then you don't need to worry about it being OpenZ. You just kind of have to scout properly, which is a skill that newer players don't know. They don't know how to scout properly. They kind of just make predictions wildly instead of having a basis for their predictions. So there you go. Results and standings. So obviously we finished first in the entire league at 9-1 plus 25, and then we got upset round 1. But I was pretty proud of myself considering last season I didn't even make playoffs. We had a 4-game buffer over 5th place, which was pretty nice. I clinched in like week 8 or something like that, which was solid. In a 10-week league, there's only so much wiggle room for you to go. But we ended up taking down everyone that I expected to beat in the first place. The only person I didn't expect to beat was Shuckle King anyways, and we lost to him. So we beat everyone that I expected to. We didn't match up against Zombie, which would have been a fun matchup. Top of each conference never ended up happening. And I didn't get my rematch against D. Danley, who beat me in week 1 of aABL last time. But we played most of the relevant people that I would have wanted to play. And yeah, that's about it. So then over here in the kill leaderboards, Nidoking finished first because it was plus 16 over plus 14 on Zombie's Mega Glade. Sorry if you can hear that. My dryer just finished. But yeah, so they both got 19 kills, but we had much better differential. It's pretty insane to me that 2 Pokemon could even get 19 kills in like 10 games max anyways, but that's how it goes. And if you keep scrolling down, here we are with Zapdos 8 and 6. We also had Mega Charizard X 7 and 4. This is probably really hard to read. Like the red on red is really difficult to read. And then it doesn't really get much better from there. Slowking 4 and 2. I mean, there's not a whole lot else there. Ferrothorn 4 and 3. Like, it was kind of just Nidoking for the most part. Obviously, Zapdos with 8 kills is fairly good for what it does, and then Charizard with 7 kills in 6 games, whatever as well. I think Charizard got, well, at least it got one more in our playoff match for sure. But that's the doc. So, prep. Actually, I'll move this over here. Teams and whatnot. I've got all the teams lined up, but this is my prep doc. If you've never seen what my prep doc looks like, this is what it looks like. Teams obviously got the max speeds at unboosted nature. So, for example, Victory Bell 239 is Adamant, 262 is Jolly. Their base speed. I've memorized a lot of these now. Like I can make a prep doc pretty quickly. It probably only takes me about maybe in 30 minutes top to go through and do 12 weeks of speed tiers, and then it's a lot longer to go through and get all the gifts on the screen. But I like having the gifts there because I'm a little bit more of a visual person in terms of that. I list the priority users, the relevant priority users, I should say, the hazard setters, removers, 4x weaknesses that I need to cover, what I'm speed creeping so that I know if I prep ahead of time for sure, the week that the match is going to happen, and the date and time that we've scheduled. Excuse me. If it's in green on my side, that means I brought it. If it's in green on their side, that means they brought it. If it's in yellow, that means I expected it. If it's in orange, like it will be in future weeks, for example, Flygon here, that means I didn't expect it to come anyways. So let's run through it quickly here. So week 1 against Zach, I brought a pretty funky Ferrothorn set. This was designed to take on his Espeon. In particular, it was designed to take on the Espeon, but it could also take on the Hydra and just get a T-Wave off on those sort of things, but Gyro Ball things like the Espeon, because Espeon like Magic bounced back 3 of my moves, and then the rest of it was relevant for the rest of the team, except for Mega Electric, which didn't come. It had a much better matchup against me the first time than the second time, and he brought it the second time and not the first time, which was, I don't know. I don't know. My Zapdos set was fully Spadef. I was designed to take on like a, like Greninja with that as well, I think. Greninja Hydra, I think, and like Special Infernape. Some sort of Selly relevance there. It probably should have been Fizdef, if I'm being completely honest with you. I really had absolutely nothing for like the physically offensive Mons on the team. Yeah, so that was kind of weird. I don't know why I didn't prep really hard for that. Like, I had almost nothing for Archeops. Ferrothorn could take the hits, but it didn't really do much back. AV Slowking, I guess I'll do it this way actually. AV Slowking put in a lot of work. I was able to break through the Seismitoad with Grass Knot plus Scald or something, and then that opened up the door for Charizard X pretty much infinitely. I was able to break Selly subs with Fire Blast, which is great. I Dragon Tailed out the Espeon. Slowking had a lot of good utility in this match when he didn't bring either Dark type, so that helped out a lot in the grand scheme of things. Slowking was pretty much unbreakable given neither Dark type or Mega Electric came. Espeon was pretty much a non-threat with this. Keldeo, I just brought Specs Keldeo. It basically forced its way into kills against this team. I got one against the Selly, and then I switched it out. I had it in the back for late game, I think, but it wasn't able to clean up, I guess. Charizard, this was really fun Charizard set. It's the same one I brought in quarters. Bulky with like Dragon Dance, Dragon Claw, Flare Blitz, Roost. Dragon Claw was like pretty much only relevant for the Seismitoad and the Hydra. But once Seismitoad was gone, it was kind of just like mono-click Flare Blitz against the team, except for that Infernape, which I ended up struggling against in a 1v1, despite being max HP because he was Life Orb and Infernape with Earthquake, which put a lot of pressure on my Zard instead of being able to just like Dragon Dance in its face. But I got a lot of T-Waves off against his team, and so it was it was really easy for my Charizard to do a lot of stuff there. In the second game, he ended up bringing Stun Spore on the Whimsicott, which ended up cucking it pretty hard. But before in the first game, he brought like Tailwind instead for speed control, so Stun Spore speed control was a much better decision on his end. And then Scarf Diggers we just cleaned up in the late game with Thunder Punch. This Mon looked so good against him on paper, and Thunder Punch was a pretty easy click with Mons like Archeops there last. Zach ended up not speed creeping my Keldeo with a lot of things that probably should have speed crept Keldeo, and so it opened up the door for me quite a bit there. He didn't bring water absorb seismotoads. There were a lot of mistakes on his end that could have been fixed to make this maybe a little bit more of a close match, and so I kind of dominated in a sense in the long run there. Week 2, we took on Zagar Tulip and the New Jersey Sobbles. I believe Gorgeist was the only thing I had that died, although I could be wrong on this one. So, yeah, the Heatran blew like Z Magma Storm or Z Fire Blast or something against my Gorgeist and killed it. It was pretty irrelevant. Gorgeist didn't really have that great of a matchup. It was designed to take on Conk, but I had better ways to deal with Conk because Nidoking just demolished him. Rocky Helmet Glyspot, I don't remember if this did anything. I can't remember if it did or not. First Impression was a pretty good revenge killing tool against a lot of the mons on the team. But I can't remember if Rocky Helmet Glyspot actually did anything. Jumpluff showing up kind of shocked me a little bit, but yeah, Nidoking picked up like 5 kills this game and got up rocks or something. So it was a pretty useful... This was like the start of Nidoking just dominating people. E-built Zapdos never ended up coming in to do anything, I don't believe. And I think I actually ended up having to hit a Hydro Pump against Conk with Keldeo because I just didn't have the damage output at the end of the game to kill that thing, which was quite unfortunate. Yeah, but that was pretty fun. And then Abomasnow, Scarf of Abomasnow, I don't believe it did anything either. Can't remember off the top of my head, though. Might have... No, because Nidoking broke everything, so I don't think it was necessary. Then week 3, we took on Spanic. This was a close match. I ended up living an Adamant Outrage with Zapdos because of the 8 defense EVs that I had. Yeah, that was pretty close. Or was it Outrage or Z Outrage? No, I think it was just Outrage. Yeah, the AV Reuniclus turned out to be quite a problem, and I had to maneuver around that late game with Keldeo hitting it and then bringing in Diggersby to kill it, I think, because I didn't have the damage output with Diggersby to kill that thing outright, and I was chipped or something like that, but I was Yachi Berry for some reason. Maybe like... No, actually, I have no idea why I was Yachi Berry. Oh, you know what? For Ice Shard Sneasel, which he didn't bring, and he didn't bring the Darm, which was really scary. And yeah, my Charizard was like bulky for Darm, but I was like mono Outrage, and this actually could have just beat him because he didn't have a Fairy, and then Gligar walled it, something along those lines. But yeah, Charizard looked really good once again. Diggersby was solid. Keldeo as a Scarfer looked pretty decent against the team. I was able to deal with Adamant Lop reasonably well with just static paras. Persian was fairly irrelevant. The idea was just to stop a setup Reuniclus, but he was AV anyways, so pretty irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. Manaphy had just one-shot, or almost one-shot with Zard's Outrage and then killed the turn afterwards. And I want to say Nidoking did almost nothing, but I know for sure that it killed Nihilego turn 1. I think he just clicked, like, Psychic, I think? Or HP Ice, something along those lines, and I just, like, killed it turn 1 instead of getting up Rocks. Rocks would have been really helpful in the grand scheme of things, honestly, but being able to just kill that Nihilego turn 1 was also really helpful. Because it opened up doors for Zard and Zapdos that I hadn't realized before. Week 4, we got ourselves absolutely thrashed by Shuckle King. I had some pretty good prep here, but unfortunately I missed a Leech Seed, which caused a Latios to just barrel through me, unfortunately. I had really good prep on my Ferrothorn for the Suicune with Bullet Seeds that sub Suicune couldn't just beat me, and I wasn't risking Power Whip misses because I believe Bullet Seed's 100%. Yeah, it's 100% accurate. Yeah, and I had the Endeavor there to wear things down as well. I thought it was a pretty solid strat against the Mega Scizor, which didn't even show up against me for some reason. I was a little bit miffed about why Rhyperior came against triple grass and triple water, but it did. And it did something. There you go. Persian, once again, it's kind of the same sort of idea with Persian. I brought U-Turn over as well as Parting Shot because Serp with Contrary is pretty annoying. Lando did something against me, I think. But Berry Abomasnow ended up not even doing anything because he didn't bring the Mega Scizor, but it was kind of a lure for the Mega Scizor. And I choked it because I clicked Ice Shard and he switched into Cobalion instead of clicking... I don't know what I would have clicked, honestly. It didn't really matter. I didn't have coverage for the Cobalion regardless. Diggersby ended up sacking. Banded Diggersby could have picked up a lot of kills, but I ended up just sacking it to a Draconium Z. Oh, I remember now. I kept parting shotting on the Latios, and foul play did like 0 to it instead of just foul playing originally. But I was trying to lower his special attack, so I don't know. Another E-Belt Zapdos that was offensive to deal with Mega Scizor and the Suicune. And I just, yeah, it failed, just got dropped on its neck pretty hard. And then sub Fightinium Z, sub CM Fight Z Keldeo could have done a lot of work. I don't remember blowing Fight Z this game, but because I was Secret Sword, I could potentially 1v1 the Latios. if he hadn't played it correctly, but he did play it correctly, so we got bopped. And we took our first 6-0 in a long time. Against Ant-Man, we picked up a 1-0 win here. This was a pretty tight game. He really lacked the hazard control and didn't even bring Garchomp against me, which, in my opinion, was one of the bigger threats against my team. Same with Toxicroak. So he was a very specially biased team against me, bar the Mega Tyranitar, which didn't even come out until later in the game. And I was able to get up rocks with my Nidoking at one point. Nidoking put a lot of pressure on the Jolteon and things of that nature as well. Actually, I put a lot of pressure on the Jolteon and the Torn with Nidoking, I think, in the grand scheme of things. I remember killing the Torn. I got 3 kills with Nidoking this game. I picked off the Mesprit or something, which led against Charizard, and I was a really bulky Charizard with Will-O-Wisp. I was able to live hits comfortably against the Garchomp, which he didn't bring. I was really defensive Charizard with Thunder Punch, Dragon Claw for the Primarina for Thunder Punch, and then Dragon Claw for everything else because nothing else was immune, and it was just really good stab. With frail steals like Durant sitting there, it was pretty easy for me to get away with that sort of set. Will-O-Wisp, I think I burnt the Mesprit at some point, but I just died to Future Sight early on. Scarf of Abomasnow cleaned up the game for me actually against the Mega Tyranitar, but it was hard finding a position to get Mega Abomasnow in without taking a ton of recoil and being able to actually deal damage to those things. Miss Magius was nasty plot, and I lived the hit with Zapdos, and I killed it, I think, with T-Bolt. But yeah, Nidoking put in a lot of work. I was offensive regular DNC that I just ended up having to sack to the Primarina or something. He was a more defensive Primarina. If he was offensive Primarina, he probably just won the game because he would have just killed my DNC. Because my Double Dance DNC was not able to put in the work that I needed it to. But yeah, Nidoking put in a lot of work once again. Excuse me. Week 6, we took on Joe and the Texas Aggies. He had such a problem with the Zard set. SD Flame Charge just burned through his team. It got 3 kills. I picked off the Ninetales, I picked off the Haxorus, and I picked off the Thundurus. And I baited the Absol, so he tried sucker punching me the first time because it was Scarf Ninetales and I flame charged on the hit, and then he tried sucker punching me to kill me and I roosted. And then I was at a layer of health where he couldn't kill me, and I SD'd on something. The Silvally was annoying, it paralyzed me or some shit, and yeah, Adam and Zard just blew through him. But yeah, this was a really fun set, and it put in so much work against him. I was kind of surprised to see the Haxorus, because Zard felt like it was more of a threat against him, and he didn't really have the defensive responses to Zard that I was expecting. He was Silvally normal or something, which was super weird too. This is the light screen DNC that I was talking about. It was just a support DNC for the Nidoqueen, but the Nidoqueen was really bulky. It was Spadef Nidoqueen or something as well, or Fizdef Nidoqueen, sorry, fully Fizdef or something like that. Life Orb Abomasnow, I don't remember what it did this game. I want to say it did nothing, or maybe it picked off the Nidoqueen at the end with Ice Punch. That might have been it. Persian, once again, another matchup where Persian was fairly irrelevant. He didn't even bring the Mew against me, and the Persian's entire purpose was to stop the Mew or taunt the Haxorus from setting up, or taunt the Nidoqueen or something like that. Yeah, Scarf Keldeo informed me that the Ninetales was Scarf turn 1, which was super solid. That was really good info, and I don't think I ended up doing anything with it. I could have knocked out the Nidoqueen with it later on in the game. I think this was a 5-0. No, 4-0 maybe? Because DNC died? Where is it? Week 6. 4-0, yeah. Yeah. DNC and Zard died. And then Diggersby, I was AV, so it wasn't designed to take on a ton of things, but I could take hits from the Nidoqueen pretty comfortably, and I was able to kill that, I believe. Week 7, we took on, oh crap, who is this? I know, I can't remember his name. Red the Demon Hog, there we go, and the Ohio State Barboach. He kept bringing physical Mega Sceptile, and then he brought physical Mega Sceptile against me. He brought King's Rock Jirachi, which is super weird because it doesn't work with Iron Head, but he flinched me with a Drain Punch against my Zapdos. Zapdos 1v1'd the Drapion early on, it 1v1'd the Jirachi early on. It could have probably 1v1 Celebi if I'm being completely honest, but it didn't matter. He brought Dual Fires, which was really strange to me. I was kind of confused not to cure him this game. But yeah, Zapdos 1v1 Drapion and Jirachi. Gillespie picked off a kill against Celebi. Bandit Gillespie kind of just claimed one every single time, if I could predict properly, with Aqua Jet and whatnot for the Moltres and the Rotom Heat. Nidoking picked off a lot of Pokemon this game. I know for sure that I killed off the Rotom Heat with it. I want to say I also killed Mega Sceptile. Could be wrong. I can't remember. It did something. I got up rocks or something like that. Xatu, I punished the Celebi's rocks, actually, with Xatu, which was kind of fun. It's always fun to get a Magic Bounce off properly. Oh, that's what it was. I didn't set up rocks with the Nidoking. I Magic Bounced them back. And I just pivoted on things. I pivoted on the Mega Sceptile or something. He ended up clicking Leaf Blade against my Slowking, which is kind of whack, but I got a kill with Slowking, Future Sight or something like that. So, who even remembers? I don't remember. Zard was offensive, which I don't even remember Zard Mega Evolving this game. But I might have got like a Flare Blitz kill, or maybe I killed the Celebi with Zard, actually. You know what? I think I revenged Sceptile with Gillespot and killed the Celebi with Zard. I can't remember. It's gone from my memory, honestly. I know it was a beatdown. Jed was a hard match, so he picked up this team with Coco Lucha, and it was like super threatening, and then Lucha didn't come, and his Speed Control didn't come, so my Zapdos set was pretty irrelevant, but I ended up 1v1ing Mamoswine with it. Nidoking, I brought a Yachi Berry set, which was kind of whack, but it still picked up a bunch of kills. You really want Life Orb for the damage output, but Yachi Berry ended up... Yeah, I secured a couple kills with Shadow Ball, and I killed the Coco. Yeah, I killed the Bronzong, the Kofag, the Coco, and I killed the Blastoise because he put me in electric terrain. If he'd gone Blastoise first, he wouldn't have died, and I wouldn't have had nothing for the Coco. Yeah, this is I brought a Scarf Mold Breaker Excadrill. This is Excadrill's first game, and it was primed to pick up a bunch of kills, and then Kefagrigus came, and it was like, eh. And the Latias didn't come either, and so my Mold Breaker was like, eh. I don't know. I don't know. Abomasnow, AV Abomasnow was like my Mega Blastoise check, and I took a Brave Bird to the face from Coco and couldn't kill it with Earthquake. Gillespod, I don't remember this doing that much. It was Fizdef for the Mamoswine. I'm pretty sure I walled the Mamoswine with it, though, at some point. It didn't do all that much. You know, I got damage off against the Kofagrigus and Trick Room, which was a threat. Ferrothorn put in a lot of work. Got up rocks. I really wore down the Kofagrigus, which was a gigantic issue for the team because I didn't bring Persian, and honestly, the coverage options that he had just made it like unbeatable. But yeah, Spadef Pharaoh with all that investment took like a +4 HP fighting or something, which was crazy, and we picked off the game later on with Nidoking. And then we had clinched by then, so week 9, I took a more progressive and conservative approach to this game against Retro and the Universal Umbreon. So we traded him Diggersby or whatever, but he had some threats, and I ended up playing it pretty safe with the Ferrothorn. He had Mega Diancie and didn't bring HP Fire on it, so I punished him for that, and we ended up picking off a lot of Pokemon. It was like Z Ice Beam Kyurem Black, so it didn't even touch me. If it was Freeze Shock, it would have made a lot more of a difference, and I Hazard Stacked him. So even besides the anti, you know, I just Hazard Stacked him. Spiritomb proved to be an issue, I think. The Diggersby just like dropped a Rocky Helmet or something. I brought the Sand, but it was fairly irrelevant until the end of the game when the Spiritomb like red carded my Hippo into Drill. And then Charizard, I don't remember Charizard doing all that much. Yeah, I actually don't remember even coming out, to be honest with you. Ferrothorn just put in so much work this game. Then the final week we had a meme match against Aaron, and I was farming kills with Nidoking. This wasn't really a meme, besides like it being physical, which is a very viable strat. And I actually never even clicked Earthquake. I just kept clicking Fire Punch and Poison Jab against him. Yeah, I don't know. This was a meme match that ended up doing whatever. It was really whatever. Slowking got a kill. Banded Ferrothorn did nothing. Curse Agility Zapdos could have swept, but it was counter Taunt Crocodile, which was really good tech. And then in playoffs, we failed pretty hard. Had I just put Earthquake on the Passimian over like Knockoff or Ironhead, then Passimian could have won that game for me. I comfortably would have lived a Thunderbolt. Well, it was not comfortably, I should say. It was a roll, but I could have lived the Thunderbolt from the Mega Manectric, killed the Infernape with Earthquake, and then at +1 I could have chosen to kill the Manectric with Earthquake or Close Combat. It was really irrelevant, but instead I had to give myself the drops because I didn't have any coverage to actually kill the Infernape besides Close Combat, and it just ended up losing me the game. But Passimian put in a lot of work this game, put on a lot of pressure. Charizard got paralyzed, but it was the same set, and it also put on a lot of pressure. Hippo couldn't live a roll from the Hydreigon. It was a roll in heavily in my favor, and I couldn't live it. Drill got paralyzed. This was like the one time I ever clicked Z. You can see running through it, right? I only brought two Zs. Fight Z against Chuckle King and Rock Z here. I picked off the Seismitoad with it, which was a gigantic problem. Persian wasn't good enough in this game, but it dealt with the Seismitoad and kept rocks off the field. Scarf Zapdos was actually kind of decent in this matchup, but I would have preferred a move to lock into where I wasn't screwed against Infernape. So something like Air Cutter maybe would have been great, or Drill Peck even, just like Scarf mixed Zapdos would have been alright, and then I could have like Drill Pecked through Greninja, Infernape baited in the Manectric or something like that. That would have been alright, because Manectric couldn't really touch Charizard. Specsgren proved to be a problem. He just had a lot of problem mons for me, and he changed up his prep a lot, which was good thinking on his part. You know, the first time he leaned heavily on Celesteela, the Espeon was kind of irrelevant, and I'm sure he discovered that the Espeon and the Archeops just really didn't have matchups in the grand scheme of things. Seismitoad had to stay. I think Seismitoad and Infernape and Whimsicott all stayed on the team, and then he changed out Espeon, Celesteela, and Archeops for both Dark types and Mega Manectric. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Like, if I was building from my team, I probably wouldn't bring Mega Manectric against triple ground, at least with no coverage for it. Like, he had Toxic for the Hippo, and obviously he had fire coverage for mons like Excadrill and Nidoking, but being able to deal with Hippo with like an HP Ice or something, I felt like made a lot more sense, especially when you can run Modest against my speed tiers. So I was a little bit confused by all of that, but that's how the cookies crumbled, and we lost to Zach, and we will not move on. It's actually the only game that's been played still, because we're still technically in the bye week when I'm recording this. It's July 28th. Yeah. Okay. Statistics and whatnot. So this is my all-time kills doc, and this is how it breaks down for you here. So everything highlighted in yellow means I used it this season. Zapdos, I'm so comfortable with Zapdos. It's one game away from most games played behind Mimikyu for my roster, and it's been in 5 leagues rather than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 leagues for Mimikyu. So yeah, I bring Zapdos a lot. It's almost got to kill a game, which is also pretty nuts. Nidoking is the lowest games played in like my top 10 kill leaders, which is nuts that it's over 40 kills in 25 games. It's really impressive kills per game stat for Nidoking, especially over 3 seasons, and I hadn't used it since aABL Season 4. This Pokemon is just so strong. Like, people just they aren't able to prep for Nidoking well, which I really like. I really like it. Keldeo, 24 kills. You can see here I've used it in 4 leagues now. I should be more comfortable with it than I am, I think. I'm not really comfortable with it, despite having it in 4 leagues. It's kind of weird. I don't know. 26 games played with it, and it just doesn't. It hasn't clicked yet, even though it probably should one of these days. Glyspod next, 13 and 12. I mean, I've used Glyspod fairly extensively as a defensive option rather than an offensive option all the time, but it does have the offensive capabilities. Excadrill, I wasn't a huge fan of before taking it here. I'm a bigger fan now. When I had it in PCL, I didn't think it was that good, but I'd rather have Drill plus Hippo, I think, than Drill plus T-Tar. Despite T-Tar actually getting like the spit F bonus and being a bigger threat, in that season T-Tar was the bigger threat than Excadrill, and I'd rather have Hippo enable Drill and just sit there as a wall, as a bulky ground, than have T-Tar on the team, and that's something I wouldn't normally say about every team. I'd rather have T-Tar by itself, if I'm being honest, and then Drill plus Hippo. Diggersby picked up a few kills before I dropped it. Still at a kill a game, which is pretty impressive given it's only 2 seasons and whatnot. Ferrothorn, I'm a huge fan of Ferrothorn. It picks up a lot of kills for me for some reason. I've only used it the 2 times in like relatively new leagues, so I'd like to pick this up in a league with higher competition where people will prep for it a little bit more. Charizard X, died passively a couple times, more than a kill a game, which is pretty nice. I would definitely draft Mega Charizard X again. It was a huge threat against people. Slowking, I'm kind of done with Slowking now. I've only had it twice, 6 and 6 and 8 games. Isn't horrible. I've used it well when I've used it, but I probably would rather have a Slowbro, which is just a bigger threat. I felt setup Slowking was just not viable in almost any of these games. It's just not. It probably just doesn't fit my style. I prefer a regen mon that can sponge everything And Slowking is not a Pokemon that can sponge everything. It's not balanced defensively. It's really heavily weighted to the Spadef side. So Mons like Torn and Mons like Amoonguss, I'm a lot more comfortable with as regen Mons. Persian, 7 and 15. I don't know, man. I've used Persian 4 times now. Oh, you know what? 5 times, actually. I definitely forgot to put in... red into that. Definitely forgot to put red into that. So that's weird, but yeah. Persian, I'm not a fan of this Pokemon. I probably will stray away from drafting it, but I don't know. I might not as well. Regular Diancie kind of let me down here, but it was really used in more of a defensive role than offensive. Zatu I only used for the one game. Can't really discuss that too much. Abomasnow was good when it came, I guess. I don't know. It was like a threat, but it also kind of wasn't a threat. I'm not sure. Not sure about Abomasnow. Passimian, 1-1 in the one game that it came to. I'll take that. And then Gorgeist and Hippowdon. Hippowdon's stat line, you know, it only came in 2 games, but Hippo was good. Gorgeist was eh. So that's pretty much all I have for you. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the season recap, and hopefully you enjoyed my run through aABL Season 5. I will most likely not be returning to aABL in the future. It's a lot of money for me to subscribe to A-Drive all the time, and the real motivation was doing this league. The sub-league, now that I've taken sort of a break from the shiny hunting aspect of my life, and I never have time to watch his streams because he's always streaming when I'm at work. So I'm probably going to end that idea and move on entirely. You know, I've been helping out run the docks and whatnot as a volunteer, and they've been talking about taking a longer break for the next one anyways. So if that's the case, then I've gotten in with people who would be able to, you know, let me know if that's a thing for signing up, and I could always resub and join back in future seasons. But you know, I'm not sure. You know, if things stay the way they are, I'm really not a fan of the 12-mon, and I really don't want to play the 12-mon forced into 12-mon format again with tiers. Like I'm really not a fan of that. I'm going to in UTL, but UTL is different, where you're forced into taking 2 tier 5s instead of 2 tier 4s, and I think I'd prefer taking the 2 tier 5 option over the 2 tier 4 option. I don't remember what Z rules they have. Let me just double check that in UTL, because I think it's different. I think it's open. I could be wrong. Let me just check here. Yeah, it looks like it's OpenZ there. So I'd be a bigger fan of 12-mon if it was OpenZ, because it offers a little bit more creativity. Yeah, that's going to be for me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I will catch you guys in the next league.